Countess Nara van Dracovin, Lord Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on campaign settings of Dungeons & Dragons, dating back, many of them, to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And of course, we started out with Spelljammer, D&D Adventures in Space. Well, where we left off, we were talking about magic and space, of course. There's a few more things I want to go over, and then we're going to dive into spelljamming. So for magic and space, planar travel. When you're within a crystal shell, planar travel works fairly normally. Any kind of gates you would create, any kind of plane shifting, astral and ethereal travel works just fine. As soon as you enter the phlogiston, though, this gets cut off. They no longer work. If you bring a magic item that creates an extra dimensional space, like a portable hole or bag of holding, you don't lose those items. You just can't access them while within the phlogiston. They basically are cut off and non-functional. You still have your portable hole. It's just you can't look what's inside your portable hole or use it for anything while within the phlogiston. Now, this doesn't mean that it can't necessarily happen. Spells of a power equal to limited wish or greater could theoretically still create planar portals within here, but you'd specifically have to use some kind of wishing ability. Not the gate spell, but wish, limited wish, miracle. Those would theoretically have an effect, but still, it's pushing against a tide that is a little dangerous. Now, when we talk about fire, of course, we've mentioned a little bit, but magical fire works fine in an air envelope. Because the fact is, normal fire works fine in an air envelope. Normal fire doesn't work in the vacuum of space. It needs air. Magical fire, because it is a sudden burst of firepower created through magic, works fine in a vacuum, just as much as the air envelope. The only thing about magical fire is that if it would normally light something on fire, it does not if it's within a vacuum, because there is nothing to allow it to catch on fire. I've talked about normal fire in the phlogiston, but magical fire, should you choose to use it, basically causes the spell to detonate in the caster's hand. That means as soon as I try to cast it, let's say I'm trying to cast a fireball, it blows up in my hand, right where I'm at, causing the fire to use its spell where I'm standing. Boom! Now, this could be a technique to use within the phlogiston, especially if you're resistant or immune to fire. Then heck, you don't really care. But it's not really smiled upon. In fact, it's really shunned, because the fact is, oftentimes this will still deal damage to ships. So I'm on a ship, if I cause an explosion of fire on it, I'm probably going to damage the ship along with whoever I'm trying to blow up, even if I don't take any damage from it. So that's why people tend, even if you're not damaged by it, to dislike using fire in this way in the phlogiston. So let's talk about spelljamming. Spelljamming is using a special device or spell that converts your magical energy to forward momentum of a ship within space. Both arcane and divine spells, wizard and priest abilities basically allow you to do this. Those even with spell-like abilities can convert that same magical energy to this. If you're a class that doesn't gain spells right away, then even when you would start to gain spells, you would start to be able to use these things. Basically, if you think about some of the archetypes in 5th edition, which they get spells, but not at your first level, as soon as you gain that archetype you get them, that's when you'd be able to start spelljamming. So as soon as you have spells, you can spelljam. Now, the helms look like a chair. It's going to have a chair with an area to rest your head, to rest your legs, and to rest your arms into them. This chair can be incredibly simple, or it could be very elaborate. Regardless, this special chair converts your magical energy to momentum. Now, there are two major types of it. There's the major helm and the minor helm, are the normal types of helms that you can encounter. A major helm effectively converts magic power to spelljamming power, to a spelljamming rating of 1 per 2 levels rating. And this is basically 2 levels the character has in a spellcasting class. 2 levels of spellcasting that you can make. So if, for example, if you're a 10th level wizard, you would create 5 spelljamming rating. That's a rating of movement and maneuverability that you're creating with this. These numbers are rounded up, so even a first level would create 1. A minor helm is a little less efficient. It creates a rate of 1 spelljamming rating per 3 level rating. So for every 3 levels you'd have, it again creates 1. This means that at 20th level you would create 7, because you'd be rounding up to that 21 level, which would have been 7 dividing evenly by 3. it's the maximum amount you can get with a minor helm. I'm going to really talk about the importance of this spelljamming rating later on when we're going to talk about maneuverability and movement of your ships. Right now, you just have to know the fact that you're converting your magical energy to this rating. Now, this isn't the only technique you can use. There's a magic item called a Crown of the Stars, which functions as a portable minor helm. So it does the same effect as a minor helm, but it allows whoever's using it to basically be able to walk around the place. Normally, I've got to be sitting in a chair to basically helm it. With the Crown of the Stars, I can walk around. Now, granted, it still converts at that rate of the minor realm of 1 rating to 3 levels, which is less efficient than a major helm. But it means that I, as the spellcaster, don't have to sit around in one place. I can go get some food, hang out with everyone else, help them maybe do something else while spelljamming. Regardless, any type of helm requires the user to be rested and relaxed before they start using it. Effectively, what this means is you have to have all the spells you normally would have memorized or had after your rest ready. If you've cast any spells since you rested, for each spell you cast, you reduce your spelljamming rating by 1 to, of course, 0. So the more spells you cast before you start spelljamming, the worse you are at doing it, because you've basically begun to strain yourself, and you have to be, as I said, relaxed and ready to do this. Now, once you start spelljamming, effectively what happens is you lose your spellcasting ability. You've basically converted it to magical energy at this point in time for momentum. The spellcasting ability would return to you after you'd have a long rest. Basically, a night's rest, you recover your spellcasting ability. But until then, you basically give it up in order to pilot this vessel. Now, the majority of humanoids that have some kind of arcane or divine spellcasters to their race will use this method for spelljamming and traveling within space. This isn't to say that there aren't other methods. Various other races have ways of converting energy. Things like mind flayers oftentimes use psionic energies. Beholders have basically designed engine versions of their own selves in order to use. Other races, like the dwarves, have powerful forges, which basically power their ships in giant mountains, which means that their fewer spellcasters tend to not have to shy into that job, that they can be used for more important things. Regardless, each method itself allows a group to spelljam within space, to travel within space, to pilot and power some form of spaceship. Now, there are a number of new spells listed in the book, both arcane and divine, both wizard and priest. These are pertaining to spelljamming, of course, because these are specifically 2nd edition spells. Adapting them to further editions will be completely up to you as the dungeon master. Read over them carefully and figure out how and if they would be convertible to your edition that you're doing. But most of them should have the ability to convert them fairly easily and usefully to your games, that you might suggest them for your players to help them out when it comes to spelljamming and traveling within space. But that's it for today. I introduced you to, of course, the rest of some information about magic in space, talking about planar travel, and talking a little bit about magical fire, because we talked about normal fire, but we didn't talk about magical fire. From then on, we began to dive into spelljamming, which I've gone over the basics of spelljamming, what it means to use a helm, master a helm, do everything you need to do with a spelljamming helm. From there, I moved on to, of course, talking about spells, special types of spells that help you out with spelljamming. These ones will be up to you as the DM to convert as you feel they are necessary to your game. In the next episode, we're going to start talking about the actual spelljamming ships to a degree, and creating them, building them, designing them, the information you're going to need to know about them. Because we've seen in the books up until now ships examples, but maybe you want to make your own, maybe you want to know more about this information provided from them. There's some more information to provide about spelljamming as the act, as the architecture of it. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's just for the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon, link description below. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.